flat, no angels singing. He'd simply realized he was damn good and fed up with the status quo, glamorous though it was. Acting in movies was all right, mostly easy work, if deadly boring a lot of the time. But lately it had been getting harder and harder to tell the difference between playing a part and the real deal. The offshoot of all this sudden clarity was that Zane had found himself on a car lot in L.A., trading in his supercharged European ride for a shiny silver pickup truck with an extended cab. In a spate of non-verbal ad-libbing, he'd driven the new truck to the nearest animal shelter, gone inside and adopted a dog, an unprepossessing critter, big and black with floppy ears. He dubbed the animal Slim, mainly because its ribs showed, a consequence of missing a few meals along the way. Leaving pretty much everything else he owned behind, Zane, with Slim, had headed north by northeast, stopping only to grab a couple of drive-through burgers here and there, gas up the truck, and snooze a little in rest stop parking lots. They'd reached Hangman's Bend late the previous night, camping out in the unfurnished ranch house. That morning, Slim had taken a liking to a certain shady spot on the porch, so he'd stayed behind when Zane set out to get a good look at the wooded section of his land. He was on foot because his horse, Blackjack, was still in transit from the California stables where he'd been boarding the gelding since his move to L.A. several years earlier. He followed the meandering creek for a bit, enjoying the way it stitched its path through the woods like a wide strand of silver thread, clear and sun-sparkled and almost musical as it rolled over worn stones that resembled jewels under the water, coursed around primordial boulders and tree stumps, some of them petrified, on its way to wherever it was going. Zane made a mental note to check a map later when he got back to the house, because he liked knowing the facts about things, liked knowing exactly where he was, both literally and figuratively. But at the moment, he was in no great hurry to turn homeward. He was out to find the southern corner of his property, supposedly staked out and flagged. At least 8 feet wide, probably 10 or 12 in some places, the stream would be difficult to cross. But eventually he came to a natural bridge, a line of 6 flat stones, small and fairly far apart. Still fit, even after living fancy from the day he'd signed that first film contract till he left Hollywood behind him. He figured he could make it to the other side without getting his boots wet, let alone taking a header into that glacier-chilled creek water. With his arms outstretched for balance, the way he and Landry used to do when they walked the top rail of a fence as kids, he moved with relative ease, never setting both feet down on the same rock, since there wasn't room. When he reached the opposite bank, no longer concentrating so hard, he stopped short, startled by what amounted to a vision. A wood nymph, dressed in faded blue jeans, battered boots, and a pale green western shirt, stood in the center of the small clearing just ahead, both arms wrapped around the trunk of a lone cottonwood tree. Her hair was brown and shiny and thick, just brushing her shoulders, and it caught the leaf-filtered light, threw it around like colored beams in a prism. Her head was tilted back slightly, her eyes closed, and the expression on her fine-boned face was downright blissful. What the hell? Zane could have watched her for hours. Just looking at the woman gave him the same belly-clenching thrill he'd gotten in his bronc riding days, in that moment before the chute gate swung open and the official 8-second countdown began. But suddenly off his game, he took an unintended half-step in her direction. A twig snapped under the sole of his boot, and the moment was over. The nymph's eyes were wide, hazel or maybe green or pale gray, and at the moment, seeing him, they were shooting fire. She backed away from the tree, and Zane noticed that her shirt was open and she was wearing a tank top underneath.